Giles, Hinkley Point Reactor C, if it is completed, is set to sell energy at 92.5 pounds per megawatt hour. When other forms of electricity are much cheaper, surely this is a wicked and pernicious French plot to rip off the long-suffering British utility bill payer.
Yeah, you would expect so. I mean, 92.5 quid, that compares to like 50 or 60 quid at the most for gas, much less for coal or oil. Even onshore wind is now getting cheaper than this, and it's a commitment to pay it forever. So mostly when you look up Hinkley Point C, you just see the phrase rip-off come back, which makes you wonder, that must be great for someone who's building it.
Yeah, so
I mean,
EDF, who's building the plant, are they getting ready to roll in a huge pile of British pounds?
And here's the twist. The finance director has just resigned because he says, I don't want you doing this, or at least take 3 years deciding it, because I'm very worried about doing this deal. So why on earth are they walking away from a great opportunity to strip money out of the British bill payer for years and years?
Yes. And more to the point, why does the stock chart look like heck? And why do the bonds go up in yield?
Well, here's the answer. One is that this company is about more than just the British nuclear option. And when they've tried to build this kind of nuclear technology before, the European pressurized reactor, it's going terribly in Finland, it's going worse in France, it's costing billions without being delivered. So debt is racking up. They've also got the entire French nuclear fleet to rejig in order to give it another 10 years. That's about 100 billion to go. So the finance director, for some reason or other, seems to think it's his job to worry about debt. And he's got a lot of debt. And so he doesn't think that the extra debt, even for this sucker's deal, is worth taking on.
So let me put the question to you in a somewhat simplified form. If this company, which has a lot of experience in this form of power generation, can only sell it at this massively uneconomic price, is there any place in the world for nuclear power?
Well, France has done really well for 30 or 40 years, pretty much running off nuclear. So they've got good experience of it. It's a technology that emits virtually no carbon, so that's great from that environmental angle. In even 20 years' time, gas ought to be gone, if you believe the environmental objectives the governments want. And it's always on. I mean, nuclear is meant to be competing with wind and solar. Those don't go all the time, so nuclear, fantastic baseload. So in theory, it ticks some of the boxes.
And I suppose there's another angle here, too, which is that it's not written in stone anywhere that energy, fossil fuel energy, has to stay cheap forever.
Yeah, exactly. We've had a little bit of a cyclical blip, as you might say, when oil falls from $100 to 30. It could go back the other way. You can be sure that nobody's going to predict it correctly.
So this leads to my final question, Giles, which is, why don't I just buy EDF's bonds? Not only might energy prices start going the right way from their perspective, that is up, but they look like, to me, they have an implicit sovereign guarantee.
Well, yeah.
The French government is not going to let this thing
And they yield a bit
bankrupt.
more. They yield a couple of percent more. In fact, that's been widening as people have been getting worried about EDF with this falling gas price and their fixed costs. Now, a couple of reasons. They're in theory guaranteed by the state, who owns 85% of the equity, but the state isn't in the happiest fiscal position. And who is it going to burn first if it's got all these bonds out there and the nuclear isn't producing the revenues you'd expect? There's some chance, maybe not of an outright default, but a future French finance minister says, what should I do? Raise taxes on the French people or mess around with these bonds a little bit?
Right.
I wonder.
On that note, Giles, thanks very much.
Thank you, Rob.